My name is Mark Gould and I work for the Communications Division of the Financial Conduct Authority. I want to talk about our expectations of financial advisors when they provide pension transfer advice. And I think the first thing to say is that our message to the advisors that we regulate is and always has been very clear. And that message is that generally it will not be in a client's best interest to leave a pension scheme that will provide them with a guaranteed and sustainable income when they retire. There are some very specific occasions where it may be a good idea, but the key word here is specific. It does depend very much on your own individual circumstances. So for example, your background, your family situation, your financial position, and lots of other things as well. Therefore, we would expect financial advisors to carry out a detailed analysis of your personal circumstances before making any recommendation to leave a pension scheme. And it's this detailed analysis that I want to talk about today. Now, this analysis would normally be known as the advice process. So in other words, we would expect advisors to follow certain steps, ask certain questions, and provide specific documentation when reviewing your personal situation and recommending something to you. Now, these steps generally should be carried out in the order that you see them on the screen. Now, this list isn't exhaustive, but in most cases this order should be followed. So we would expect advisors to talk to you about disclosure. This is where they will tell you about the services they can offer and the cost of these services. We would expect advisors to ask lots of questions about your personal situation and then carry out research. We would also expect advisors to provide you with a suitability report where they will tell you what the recommendation is and explain their reasoning behind that recommendation and talk about the importance of ongoing services. I'm going to go through each of these areas in turn and describe what should have happened when you were dealing with a financial advisor. And all we'd like you to do is to consider if these steps were covered in detail with you. And if that wasn't your experience, or you're not sure if the advice you've received is suitable, then you can contact the Financial Ombudsman Service. And please look at their website for further details on the process to follow. Disclosure should be the start of the advice process. So in other words, the advisor should have provided you with information setting out specifically what type of firm they are, the services they can and will offer, and the cost of these services. Now, I just want to reiterate here that you should have received this information at the start of the process, prior to any advice being given to you. Let's look at this information in a bit more depth. Type of firm. Well, financial advisors can offer independent advice, which means they can consider products and providers from the whole market, or they can offer restricted advice, which means they are limited to certain products and providers. The disclosure information that you receive should set out whether the firm are independent or restricted. And if the firm only offers restricted advice, then the advisor has to clearly explain what and who they are restricted to. Services that can and will be delivered. Well, again, the disclosure information that you receive should set out what the advisor will do on your behalf. So for example, some financial advisors will give advice on every part of your financial life, whereas some other advisors will just focus and concentrate on your pension scheme. Now, many firms will also offer ongoing services. Now, these services vary, but would normally involve a regular meeting and a review of your investments. Now, we'll talk about this later, but if a firm offers an ongoing service, then again, they have to clearly explain what that service will look like and how much it will cost in the disclosure information provided. One other point here is that some financial advisors may not have the necessary qualifications to advise on pension transfers, and they may outsource this work to another firm that does. Now, if that's the way the advisor operates, then they should make you aware of that. And finally, cost of these services. Well, of course, it's really important to understand what fees and charges you will pay for advice and when you will be expected to pay them. Financial advisors have to tell you up front how much their services will cost in pounds and pence. This means that you will know how much the advice will cost before any work takes place, and it gives you the opportunity to decide if the services are affordable to you. One other point here is that some financial advisors will only charge a fee if a pension transfer actually takes place. And again, if that's the way they operate, then they should make you aware of that. The next part of the advice process is called Know Your Client or fact finding. And this is arguably the most important part of the process, as it's where the advisor should be asking lots of questions about your specific situation. The answers to these questions will dictate whether it's suitable and appropriate to leave an employer's pension scheme. Now, the approach I would like to take here is to highlight the key areas that you should have been asked about. Now, obviously the answers to these questions will be personal to you, but as I mentioned before, consider if you were asked about these areas and the answers that you gave. Now, we can split fact-finding into three broad areas: your personal circumstances, your risk profile, and your objectives and needs. Let's start with personal circumstances. Well, in general terms, you should have been asked about the following: your marital status and family details, your health, your knowledge and experience of investing money, your tax position, your income and your expenditure, not just what they are at the moment, but what they might look like when you retire as well. The advisor should take into account any other pension plans that you have and consider your state pension entitlement. They should also think about any other assets and liabilities that you have, as well as considering your planned retirement date and any possible inheritances that you may be entitled to. Now again, this list isn't exhaustive, but this basic level of information should have been obtained by the advisor and, where appropriate, gone into in more depth. So for example, if you indicated that you had a health issue, then the advisor should be asking for more detail on the extent of that issue. Now, in your experience, did that happen? Also, as part of the fact-finding process, the advisor should have discussed how you feel about risk. They may have called this your attitude to risk. There should have been a discussion on this, and perhaps you were asked to fill in a questionnaire. Now, as a result of this exercise, the advisor should have established how much risk you want to take. So in other words, how would you feel about investing your money into something where there may be a financial gain, but there is also a chance that you may lose some or all of your pension fund? But it's not just about how you feel. How much risk are you able to take? So could you pay your bills in retirement if you lost some or all of your pension fund? And what about the level of risk you need to take? You may have certain aims and goals in retirement that can only be achieved if you invest your money in a certain way. And finally, what about the general risks of transferring out of an employer's pension scheme? So did the advisor explain the risks and benefits of moving to a new pension plan? Did they explain that the employer's pension scheme will provide a guaranteed income in retirement? And did they explain that if you transfer, you may run out of money? You may live longer than your pension. How would you feel about that? Also, as part of the fact-finding process, the advisor should have established your needs and objectives. And the aim of establishing needs and objectives is to understand what your priorities are and what your plans are for the future. Now, it's unusual, but on some occasions, a client's needs and objectives will be perfectly aligned. So in other words, what you want to do is also what you need to do. But that is unusual, and on most occasions there will be some differences between the two. And that's where the advisor comes in, because we would expect them to accurately identify your needs alongside your objectives, prioritise each element, and then build their recommendation around that. So for example, your objective may be that you want to have more control over your pension money. Or your objective may be that you want to get your hands on your pension money a little bit earlier. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but we would expect financial advisors to use their expertise and weigh up the pros and cons. They also have to think about your needs in retirement, which would normally involve paying bills and looking after your family. Having more control of your pension money may be important to you, but if you have to transfer your pension fund to enable you to do it, then it may impact on your family and lifestyle. Let's give you some examples of the needs that we would expect advisors to take into account. We would expect advisors to think about how much income you will need in retirement. We would expect advisors to think about your liabilities. So what kind of bills are you going to have when you retire? Rent, mortgage, gas, electricity, council tax, food bills. Advisors should also think about your dependents. Fairly self-explanatory. Do you need to make any provision for dependents when you retire? And advisors should also think about timing. So when can you and when do you need to access your pension money? So to summarise fact-finding, we would expect advisors to pull together all of this information around your personal circumstances, your views on risk, and your needs and objectives, and establish the most beneficial outcome for you. Now, the next part of the advice process is called research. So the advisor takes all of the information that they've gathered about you and starts to consider the options that are open. Now, at this point, we would also expect advisors to carry out a detailed comparison of the benefits available in the employer's pension scheme against the benefits available in any proposed new arrangement. And that detailed comparison needs to look at the following. Death benefits available. Well, what are the death benefits available in the employer's pension scheme? And what are the death benefits available in any proposed new arrangement? Income levels available. The employer's pension scheme will provide a guaranteed income in retirement. Would any new pension plan deliver that? Tax-free cash available. Well, how much tax-free cash is available in the employer's pension scheme, and how much tax-free cash would be available in any proposed new plan? Early retirement position. Well, if you're looking to retire early, will the employer's pension scheme allow you to do that? Income sustainability. The employer's pension scheme will provide a guaranteed income for life. Would any new pension plan deliver that? Flexibility of existing and proposed new plan. The employer's pension scheme will manage your money on your behalf. Now, is that what you want, or do you want more control over your pension money? Would any new pension plan give you that control? And research also has to consider where the money is going if a pension transfer takes place. So the advisor has to think about the type of fund the money will be invested in, the type of product that the money will go into, and who will be the provider of that product. Research has to consider all of these things. Now, following this comparison, a transfer analysis should be prepared. Now, the rules on this have changed since October 2018, but generally, the analysis should illustrate the cost of replacing the benefits that are being given up if you leave your employer's pension scheme. So in other words, how much money would any new plan have to make to match being in the employer's scheme? Now, it's really important to point out that we wouldn't necessarily expect you to be involved in the research process. This is about the advisor assessing what they know about you, reviewing the market, and then coming up with a suitable recommendation, coming up with whatever is in your best interest. What we would expect, though, is that the advisor communicates their findings and recommendation to you. And if the advice is to leave your employer's pension scheme and transfer to a new arrangement, then you should have received what we would call a suitability report. Now again, the rules on this have changed since October 2018, in that advisors now have to provide a suitability report regardless of whether the advice is to transfer or not. But in simple terms, the report should explain the recommendation, it should explain how the advisor has arrived at that decision, and it should also explain why it's the right thing to do based on your personal circumstances. But there are some clear guidelines in terms of what has to be included in this report. Your needs and objectives must be in there. We expect reports to be personalised. We have seen situations where advisors have regularly used the same report for different clients and just changed the client's name. That's not what we are looking for. The report must contain a clear recommendation. Advisors should not give you a list of options and then ask you to choose. Again, that's something that we've seen. As with any recommendation, there will be advantages and disadvantages, and we expect financial advisors to present them to you in a balanced way. We have seen situations where advisors have overplayed the merits of transferring out to get better death benefits for the client. And when we've looked at the client's situation, they have no spouse or dependents to leave these death benefits to, so it's been a pointless exercise. The fourth point, that's the transfer analysis that I was talking about a minute ago. The report must clearly state that you will be losing a guaranteed income for life if the advice is to leave your employer's pension scheme and transfer to a flexible or income drawdown plan. And finally, other material information must be provided, particularly if the advice is to leave your employer's pension scheme and transfer to an income drawdown plan. Risk warnings must be given and should explain that the capital value of the fund may be eroded, that investment returns may be less than those shown, that the income levels provided may not be sustainable, so in other words, you may run out of money, and that there may be tax implications. So in summary, the suitability report should help you decide whether to accept or decline the advice. Now, as I mentioned earlier, many firms will also offer ongoing services. So for example, this could be an annual review to check the value of your investments and consider any changes to your circumstances. And these services are important, particularly if the advice was to leave your employer's pension scheme and transfer to an income drawdown plan. The advisor should have made you aware of the importance of regularly reviewing the income that you take from a drawdown plan, because you may take too much and your pension fund may run out. Now, you don't have to use ongoing services, but if you have no experience in managing investments, then it's an option that should have been seriously considered. Now, if a firm offers an ongoing service, then they have to clearly explain at outset what that service will look like and how much it will cost. And the advisor should also have made you aware that you can cancel this service at any time. Now, if you signed up for an ongoing service, are you actually receiving that service? Are you getting what you're paying for? So in summary, well, it's really important to point out that we are not suggesting for 1 minute that you have all received poor or unsuitable advice. We just want you to think about this advice process. Were these steps covered in detail with you? The steps that I've been talking about during this video. If that wasn't your experience, or you're not sure if the advice you've received is suitable, then you can speak to the Financial Ombudsman Service. As I said right at the beginning, our message to the advisors that we regulate is that generally it will not be in a client's best interest to leave a pension scheme that will provide them with a guaranteed and sustainable income when they retire.